Welcome to Can't Stop the Pop, the podcast where we, that's me, Craig,
and me, Matty,
do a deep dive on a song from the 90s or noughties.
So, Craig, it's season 3. Welcome back.
Yeah.
What song are we doing this week?
Okay, we are doing H and Claire, All Out of Love. So, what are your immediate thoughts?
The step song that never was, best song H and Claire recorded, and just a brilliant pop song. But before we get into me gushing about how amazing this song is, who are H and Claire, and why are we talking about this song? Which sentence that I just love saying.
H and Claire are two members of Steps.
Never heard of them.
I don't know if you've heard this story, but in 2001, at the end of the Gold Tour, they handed in their notice. They gave letters to the rest of the group saying, we quit. And then in 2002, they launched as a duo. And this song was their third single. It was released just before their debut album. There is so much to talk about. Well, we'll talk about the song itself, because the song is quite interesting. But the song was a double A side.
It was a double A side.
With Beauty and the Beast. Disney in the early noughties went through this weird phase where they were re-releasing their classic movies on DVDs. And to promote them, they were getting local acts that were popular to record covers. And H and Claire recorded Beauty and the Beast. Now, we won't talk about Beauty and the Beast very much, but their version is stunning, and possibly even the definitive version of that song. Now, I'm not saying that I said that, but it might have been said at some point.
So, before we talk about All Out of Love, I have to mention Beauty and the Beast, because I actually think it's a really lovely cover version. But what I am obsessed with is this story about how the last thing they ever did as H and Claire was an ill-fated performance of Beauty and the Beast at Disneyland, which that they were supposed to perform it, but then the track played entirely without them because no one pushed them on stage, and then it's restarted again. I'm pretty sure that that's what happened. I'm sure the boys at Glitter and Gold or some Steps fans will correct me. It was a double A side with Beauty and the Beast, and for me, one of the questions that we always ask is, where did it fit in the album campaign? What a bizarre album campaign, but I kind of love the chaos. It was the third out of the 4 singles that were released, if you include both songs from the double A side, and what a diverse group of songs of DJ, Half a Heart, All Out of Love, Beauty and the Beast, stylistically all over the shop.
So all over the place.
And I feel like at the time, I don't think many people gave this song its due, how good it was, because it is an absolutely incredible pop song. It's a real moment for them. I love it.
It is a moment, and that sort of brings us on to the song. The moment it was part of the problem. This was written by Mark Topham, Carl Twigg, and Andrew Frampton.
Yeah.
And those 3 songwriters are all across Steps' back catalogue. Pretty much every single that they released was co-written by at least one of those writers.
Yeah.
And so less than a year after they've quit Steps, I don't think this sounds like a song that would have fit onto any of the previous Steps albums, but I think this is a song that if Steps had released this as the first single from their next album, people would have been like, this is the next step in their sound, because it does take familiar elements. You've got the slow build and the big soaring chorus and Claire on the lead, but there's other elements in there. So I love there's this like trancey beat that kicks in at some point.
God. I completely agree with everything you said. On my notes, I said this feels like the embodiment of what the Fourth Steps album would have been. Obviously, the Fourth Steps album went on is technically Light Up the World and then Tears on the Dance Floor, but like we ignore the Christmas album. But it feels like what the Fourth Steps album should have been, and it mashes up that style of One for Sorrow, Claire-led, big vocal, slow build, but with the trancey dance elements of You'll Be Sorry and Here and Now and what the Buzz album encapsulated. And then you've also got the slight saffron drum element that comes from Chain Reaction. So it feels like the real continuation of what their sound would be. Once again, I always put everything I say with a disclaimer because I am always the one that says something wrong or something that isn't true. But I believe that they weren't particularly that fussed about wanting to release it because it did sound so much like a step song. And obviously you've got the writing team. But I love that now they have a love for it. And Claire did it on her My Wildest Dreams tour, which she did very small venues for her first solo album, but she did a version of All Out of Love. I've watched so many videos of crowds going absolutely mental for her rendition. I've said with the song, it does truly feel like Claire's song. I love H's verse. It's great. But his vocal in the mix is very quiet. And that is not to do disservice to H. I actually do think H has developed so much as a great singer. And some of his vocals on the later albums are really strong. And he's always solid live. But in this number, my God, Claire, she's like Celine Dion, screaming these massive top notes in such an incredible way.
I'm using my tablet this year because I've made notes. I'm moving up in the world, very high tech. But that was my critique. And it has always been my issue with H and Claire as a duo. We talked about this on CCTV when we did our episodes with
Yes, we did.
About When I Said Goodbye. I think that was the first time you heard H and Claire sing together. And it's stunning. And then they launch as a duo. And in DJ, they just sing separately. And then you can't hear H at all in the mix. Half a Heart is properly mixed as a duo. They sing together. And on this one, again, H is there. You can hear his vocal in the mix. But you can't have H and Claire as a duo and then have Claire at 80% and H at 20%. It doesn't make sense.
A lot of the album feels like that as well. Beauty and the Beast and Half a Heart are way more balanced in the vocal distribution.
Yeah.
And this feels very much like Claire's song. H doesn't even get the whole bridge in his bit. Claire gets the middle eight. Claire gets the main vocal. But she sounds amazing.
She sounds amazing.
The only thing I will say about the vocals, I am not convinced that the key change is real. I have always thought that the key change was a take that has been pitched up, because if you really listen to Claire's vocals, there is a slight ping chick monkey to it. And it also, that when she's done it live, because they never sang it live, there is no televised performance of All Out of Love live. It's all mimed. But when she did do it live on the My Wildest Dreams tour, it was in a lower key. So I would love to pick someone's brains. It's so high there. Fall apart like I used to do. Is in the rafters of her vocal. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it sounds like it's just been pitched up.
So I was just about to mention the key change, because the key change is epic.
Yeah.
But you are right. I listened to the song earlier just to check it was still as fabulous as I thought it was. It was. If you could compare it to any song from Steps in terms of the tone of her voice, is like Better Best Forgotten, and we know their vocals were pitch changed in that song because all the girls said we couldn't sing like that. Maybe that is a revelation.
I stand by it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'll fully apologise for it.
We're going to find that out.
We're going to find that out. I want to talk about the video, Craig. Can you start us off with the concept? Because this video is high camp. Up until this point, they'd done DJ, which was kind of a basic we're going to Ibiza video. They'd done Half a Heart, which was the CGI box.
Stuck in a Windows screensaver. Yeah.
In a Windows screensaver. Then we've got this. Can you just explain what's going on in this video?
Okay. I would describe this as H and Claire and friends going to an immersive Cluedo experience.
Yeah.
And it wasn't clear to me that this was happening when I first saw it. They turn up at this mansion and you don't hear it, but they're telling this story about a murder that happened, but they're also all playing the roles of the story they're telling. The styling between the two eras isn't different enough for it to be really obvious of what's happening when. You have H and Claire, they're sort of in the study with their friends. Again, you're sort of thinking, if they need all their friends with them, why not just have steps? It reinforces that thing that they need people with them. But anyway, you're also cutting to drama, H dancing around the kitchen with the waiters, Claire at the dinner table having a sort of hissy fit and throwing a napkin, and then someone dies and then someone's already put the chalk outline around the body and Claire's got the candlestick behind her back.
The candlestick behind the back is absolutely amazing, and the camera pans in on it really, really quickly. For me, my biggest takeaway from the video is two things. It feels like the sequel to It's the Way You Make Me Feel. Someone looked at that video and they went, right, we've done the beautiful ballroom version of it. Now let's do the Cluedo version of it. The dance sequence is filmed in a room that looks so similar. You put those videos side by side. It feels like its darker cousin, which leads me to the point of the whole story-led video. It was such a thing in the 90s, and it's such a thing that bands like Steps did so well. Videos like Tragedy, Chain Reaction, Love's Got a Hold on My Heart. The videos that H and Claire had made previously did not follow that format. They were just, we're edgy, it's early 2000s, we're on the beach, or we're in a Windows screensaver. This felt just like a Step song. And that was probably intentional, because it probably was, we will get to the stats later, in the way that the singles performed less and less. Maybe it would have been different if this had been the first song out the gate, I don't know. But they wouldn't have wanted that. But with the video, it just, H in the kitchen dancing, it's so unintentionally camp. And talking of the dancing, it is...
I know what's coming.
Insanely difficult to the point in which it is so much more complicated. You wouldn't be able to put this in a little sleeve like the old Steps dances.
No.
And there was even like an old footage that H put out recently that he'd done from back in the day. Yeah. And I am obsessed with this Instagram interaction. He put it up and it was of him and Claire doing the dance. And Lee commented, wow, Claire, those moves, you've never looked that good before, winky face. And it was such a little nudge to the fact that Claire sometimes has struggled with the dancing and been very honest about that. And she's in this video, they give her Britney J-Lo level choreo. The dance break. Craig, can you just...
Yeah, there is.
Can you just explain it? Now. Because it's not in some of the videos on YouTube. You have to look for it specifically.
Yeah, so you have to look for the video that's about just over 4.5 minutes long, because before the key change chorus, there is a very of its time dance break. Would you say this is an unnecessary dance break?
No, this is so necessary. Insert sound effect.
Dance, just dance.
So I would describe the dance break, you know, Jumanji, when they go near the board game and start to hear the drums. That's what the dance break sounds like to me, with plates smashing around it. And I don't know why it's there. I don't know why they did that. It's so bizarre. It's not in the radio edit. It's not in the single, but it is in the video.
But it's also been cut out of what is listed on YouTube as the official video, because I watched it through and I went, where's the dance break? So I had to search deeper into YouTube, go back a few videos. But it was the version that was on music channels at the time, TMF or the Hits or the Box or whatever you used to watch. And it just, for me, it comes out so left field. Everything else about the video really works. Even though the story is convoluted, even though the whole Cluedo thing with the camp candlestick reveal is a bit silly. The song is amazing. This, oh my God, it's so unintentionally funny because the choreography is really intense, but then the dance break, there's really strange moves. There's lots of crashing of cymbals and plates in the background, like a Greek dance. And they end with this move where it's shimmy, 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 shimmy. But the shimmy just keeps going. And I swear there's a shot in which that it looks at Claire and I can just see her like, I am so done. I am not here anymore. I love it so much. This is a slight tangent, but we're talking about that dance break. That is so of its time, but so of its time of that entire decade. You could probably chart the rise and fall of the inserted dance break into a version that's not on the radio edit. And sometimes it makes the song better. It was definitely a thing that was pioneered by the likes of Janet Jackson and Jennifer Lopez. Yeah. It's in so many of their videos from the 2001, 2, 3 era. But it continued through the whole decade. Then you get the Pussycat Dolls that would put it in every single song. I'm sorry, the definitive version of When I Grew Up is the version with the dance break in the video. H and Claire led the way, obviously.
My two takeaways from the video in hindsight are, yes, H dancing with the waiters is a little bit silly, but actually, this was 2002. Men did not dance with men in pop music videos. So to have H, who wasn't openly gay, he wasn't out, to have him dancing with male dancers, I thought was a really great thing for him to do. It wasn't sexual, but it just didn't happen. And I would say the video itself is really well shot in terms of the dance sequence at the end, the camera angles. It's really dynamic. There's a bit where Claire's skirt flicks over the camera in time with the song. It's meticulously storyboarded. It's just bizarre.
It's bizarre, but it's brilliant. Right, so Craig, that's what we think. But what happened when this song was released? Because there's a lot to unpack here.
Don't freak out until you know the facts. Relax, Matt.
Yeah. The song peaked at number 10, so continued a downward trajectory. DJ number 3, Half a Heart number 8. Not a massive seller. It sold 23,000 copies in its first week, but it's not in the top 200 of the year. And then they release the album, Another You, Another Me. And it peaks at number 58, which
was abysmal for the time.
It was. I'm not sure at that point it was necessarily a surprise, and I can understand if they didn't want to release it. It did feel a bit like a last ditch. Nothing else is really sticking, so let's just go back to what people know them for. But also, I suppose in the context of that, you also had a Steps compilation album being released the following week, The Last Dance, which was just a collection of remixes and B-sides, and that peaked at number 57. So slightly embarrassing that H and Claire got out-peaked by a Steps compilation album.
But that also shows the stats that the same people bought both.
I think it just felt like Steps' time and maybe that genre of pop music, people were just moving on from it. And I do think the end of Steps, certainly for me, I can say, was a point when I did start to transition to new music because I'd been a fan of Steps for 4 years. And suddenly it was like, okay, well, what now? And I started listening to other artists. And H and Claire did feel like, particularly with All I've Loved, it was looking backwards, not forwards. And there's a part of me that thinks maybe if Steps had continued, I don't think they would have underperformed to that level, but would a fourth Steps album have continued their run of success? I'm not sure it would have done because I just think the industry was starting to change.
I'm inclined to agree. As sad as it was for them to split at that time and, you know, all the iconic moments in the reunion documentary, it probably needed to happen at that time because they went out on a high and they would have been in jeopardy of not continuing that run. And I feel like a fourth Steps album would have performed with the same trajectory as the fourth S Club album did, of a much lower chart position for the album, slightly underperforming singles. They'd had a greatest hits album which had gone multi-platinum. So my hope for the song has always been that we would get a live version with H and Claire again, or a remixed Steve Anderson version that was a Steps song. Someone bringing to the table, let's re-record this song, but with the 5 of us, and let's distribute the vocals because it was the same writers. And with the performance of the song, it didn't surprise me that it got to number 10. What did surprise me that was the album underperformed that much. I didn't think it was going to go number 1. It sounds really sad, but me and my brother held on to H and Claire really tightly because it felt like it was still Steps, and I wasn't really ready to let go. I remember back in the days before social media, we used to check websites. I checked the H and Claire website loads for updates. And there was one that was just, we're taking a little break. Thank you so much for your support. I honestly was so sad and devastated that the album didn't do that well because it meant that we wouldn't get a tour. It meant that they would get dropped. And also, a lot of people might not remember, but they signed a millions of pound record deal for like 5 albums, which seems bonkers in today's market. But it was an ambitious record deal. And
Yeah.
It felt very sad at the time, and I feel for them. I'm just glad that time has been very kind to this song. And I'm also glad that time has been kind to their discography, because I do think that there's some really good stuff on that album. Some really lovely ballads, really great vocals. I mean, it's not an album I'm going to listen to on a daily or weekly basis, but if I've ever gone back to any of the songs, I always enjoy it. And this song is such a banger.
I really like the album. I do listen to it quite regularly. For me, what you hear from the album, and I don't think this will come as a surprise because it's exactly what the singles were, no one really knew who H and Claire were as a duo. There's stuff that Steps would never have recorded. There are lots of mid-tempos and ballads, but there is stuff that is very much influenced by Steps. And you come out the other side of it and you just think, I don't really know what they were about musically. But I enjoy the album for what it is. You know, I like a ballad, I like a mid-tempo. It's a song that sounds like a rip-off of the Anastasia.
All I want to do is an Anastasia song.
Like a river to the ocean. Love keeps bringing me back to you. An irresistible emotion. I can't deny the truth.
There's a cover of a Jessica Simpson song.
Broke through the storm, and you took back the night. Baby, you are the fire, burning the midnight sky. And your light keeps taking me high.
They didn't release another single after this. They disbanded shortly afterwards. I think they were going to release Another You, Another Me as the next single. Wouldn't have done anything. Not a great single choice for that. I just don't think that would have helped in any way whatsoever.
Another you, another me. It was the dawn of the first day, and life had only just begun. Another you, another me.
I like Another You, Another Me, but it wouldn't have helped the album. It might have been better as a second single choice. You never know. As you've said, it was diverse. There's songs on there on the album like Nothing at All.
Out of nothing at all, I can't face this world alone. Maybe I can't make you know.
All I Want Is You, Too Close to Tears.
One day we're gonna laugh about it. Maybe to write a song about it. Now we're too close to tears, too hurt to talk anymore.
That are just stylistically completely different. For me, the
Yeah.
ballads and the mid-tempos fit together as a collection of 8 or so songs, but the up-tempos are all over the place because they didn't know where to put them. Because pop was changing. 2002 was a real post-Steps and Spice Girls world in the UK.
Yeah.
They kind of just got a bit lost.
Totally.
There was quite a few solo acts at the time from bands. I'm thinking people like Rachel Stevens and Kim Marsh. A lot of them actually came out with a really clear idea of who they were going to be as a pop star. And H and Claire just weren't that.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a sad end. But if you just take the song out of it and the video out of it and we look back on it now, for me, chef's kiss. And it's one of my most listened to Steps / H and Claire / Steps solo songs. It really is. I love it. If you want to listen to All Out of Love by H and Claire, you can find it on all streaming platforms. And where can they find us?
Can't Stop the Pop has a website where there are now over 500 reviews,
Yay!
including this song, and Beauty and the Beast, of course, which you can find at can'tstopthepop.com.
We're also on social media. I am Matt_Atkins9 on Instagram. And you can also find us on TikTok at Can't Stop the Pop Podcast, where we basically do this, but in 60-second clips.
And I am can'tstop_the_pop on Instagram and TikTok. And we're also at Can't Stop the Pop on YouTube because we do have some video content now.
Do subscribe to all our channels, get in touch, let us know what you think of the song, what you think of the show, and please leave us a review, but only a good one, wherever you get your podcast from, because we really do love to hear from you.
Thank you so much for listening. Welcome back to Season 3. Let's do it all over again, and join us next time for more
Can't stop the pop.